The Butera era is in full swing as Paul Toboni and the Washington Nationals made it official, but also acknowledging that this is an outside-the-box hire. But what should Nationals fans be prepared for?
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And I am your host, Ryan Clary, your Nationals insider here, as we are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every single day. And later on in today's show, we have got some of the new front office guys here in town. But what are their new positions? You've got a couple of big names who have come over, some from the Red Sox, one Justin Horowitz from the Pittsburgh Pirates. What exactly will they oversee? Paul Toboni answered that, so we'll discuss that later on in the show today. And in the second segment, Mike DeBartolo has a new role, and yes, it's going to be interesting. And what exactly will we have to do, as he is the senior vice president of the Washington Nationals? We'll have that discussion later on in the show today. But Paul Toboni spoke on Blake Butera and gave us a good idea of what Nationals fans should expect, but also answered a tough question surrounding a Nationals potential GM hire. So before we jump into that, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. And the Washington Nationals have a new manager. It is set. It is official. And Blake Butera will be the manager of the Washington Nationals, settling in here with the Butera era. But I think that Paul Toboni really kind of discussed in great detail of what Blake Butera will be doing, and just kind of like the surprise factor surrounding hiring Blake Butera. And really the biggest quote that set out to me was, I look for someone to build a winning culture in baseball. They're really responsible for getting the most out of the players. To me, what that reads into is that Blake Butera is going to have time to set here and really get himself just kind of entrenched in the Washington Nationals. And if you go back to Davey Martinez and Mike Rizzo, this was something that I felt as if was maybe left on the back burner from Davey. Like, I feel as if that the managerial position is really just what the title is. You're managing players. You're out there constructing lineups. You make the decisions on who's coming in the 7th, the 8th, and the 9th, and you have that game plan set in stone. But I feel as if that the Nationals may have lost kind of foresight of what the Nationals and what coaches should be doing, which is exactly what they are supposed to do. And that is coaching up talent. There have been a lot of questions and a lot of pundits in baseball, whether it be former players or former managers, come out and say, you're really hiring a player development guy as your next manager? How? Well, player development is something that goes hand in hand in coaching. And player development does not stop once you get at the major league level. You think about guys like Ryan O'Hearn, for instance, someone who was DFA'd, Max Muncy with the Dodgers from the Oakland A's way back in the day. These are guys who have gone on to have successful careers without being sent down to the minors, but these are guys who thrived up in the major leagues, made adjustments from their coaching, and have since become all-star caliber players. That is something that has not happened under Davey Martinez. I'm not here to tell you that it's going to happen under Blake Butera. But the idea of that is exactly what the dream is with Blake Butera. And I think that right now, what the Nationals need most is obviously a culture shift. The Nationals need a winning culture in this clubhouse. You've seen guys come from years past, like Nathaniel Lowe, for instance, this past season. It felt as if he comes from a Rangers organization, fresh off a World Series, gets traded here to DC, and all of a sudden the fun is kind of out the window. Not saying that he wasn't having fun, but it certainly seemed as if he was a lot happier at the Boston Red Sox than what he was with the Nationals. Do I blame Lowe for that? Not necessarily. But also, that just kind of goes to show you that a lot of Nationals fans have just kind of gotten used to losing. And that's not on anyone in particular. This is not on the players. It just felt as if that was the message that they were receiving by, number one, losing games the way that they did, and number two, not seeing good results from the organization. That has to come to a change. And the Nationals have to have a new way forward. I feel as if the Nationals hiring Blake Butera, someone who has success as a low A manager with the Tampa Bay Rays, someone who's had success as a player development senior director for the Tampa Bay Rays over the years. Like, this is someone who kind of has the best of both worlds. Yes, managing low A ball is not the same at all to managing a Major League Baseball game. There are some things that overlap, obviously, like managing those decisions. Who's best to come in the seventh? How many innings does your starting pitcher have tonight? Does he feel great? What about your lineup? How are you going to play CJ Abrams? Is your leadoff hitter? Is your three hitter? Those are the big decisions that he is going to have to make. But also, it's not just going to be about him. It's going to also be about Paul Toboni in this front office. While Toboni did say that obviously him and I are very aligned in what we think and what we believe in the game, and I surely do believe in that, both them having very similar backgrounds in player development. They've got similar backgrounds, the way they view data and analytics, and both coming from organizations who use those things and use those tools in the correct manner. But this is also going to be about Toboni. I'm not saying Toboni is going to tell him, oh, CJ Abrams is your leadoff hitter, or he's your sixth hitter, actually. Luis Garcia Jr., he's not part of this future. Like, he's not going to say things like that in order to help him manage the game. But they will work side by side in this operation to conduct the best possible way forward, whether it be in lineup changes, whether it be with bullpen moves, whether it be who starts when and how they space out Mackenzie Gore or Jake Irvin, guys with former injury issues. Like, these are things that will have to go hand in hand. And I think Paul Toboni and this Nationals front office, they're going to have a lot of say in this operation. This is definitely an outside the box hire. We've discussed that on this show. Like, in my opinion, Toboni did not necessarily say this. Like, he did acknowledge that he has no prior experience with Blake Butera. But what he did kind of mention was that I've heard glowing things about this guy and that I've had connections with him in the past. We've never met and never had a personal relationship, but we've crossed paths. And yes, we have known of each other for quite some time now. I still feel as if, and this is just my gut feeling, that Blake Butera has been on Toboni's radar for a long, long time. It's kind of hard to ignore that. Like, to come in and take over the president of baseball ops job, you would think that in your mind, you're going to go after like a Brandon Hyde maybe, or a Rocco Baldelli, or maybe someone who's the hot name in this coaching cycle. To just come out of left field with a low A manager, with someone who is getting front office roles that are attached to him. Like, I think the Dodgers were on Blake Butera as well. Like, there were a lot of different teams out there that supposedly wanted him to be in their front office. And the Nationals said, no. We're going to hire you, but we're going to hire you as our next manager. It just feels so outside the box that it's hard to imagine that over the last month, he just discovered who Blake Butera is. He discovered the brilliant mind that he is. And he's like, you know what? You're actually going to be my manager. It feels as if that this has been something that Toboni has thought of when he puts his head on the pillow at night. And back in July, when he's still with the Red Sox, he's like, you know what? When I'm hired as the next GM somewhere, Blake Butera is going to be my out of left field hire. He's going to transform the way that we hire managers. He's going to transform the way that this team is going to be going forward with. Like, this just feels like a move that Toboni has been sitting on for months at this point. And I'm not saying that's exactly what it is, because it certainly is an interesting hire. But you got to think to yourself, like, is that all? Like, is this really what you wanted? I don't know. It's something that I think a lot of people have thought of over the last coming days here, but I really like this hire, and I really like what Paul Toboni has had to say about this. And also, the key part of it is, again, that they are aligned in what they believe. There is not going to be a miscommunication from the front office into the management. Those things will be working side by side together, and that is exactly what should be happening in the year of 2025 when it comes to baseball. Like, the outdated way of thinking is like, oh, the manager just does the day-to-day stuff and the GM just shops for ingredients. Like, yes, they have roles that they have to stick to, and hopefully they get to each do their own job. But also, it's kind of nice to have those alignments right then and there. I think Davey Martinez and Mike Rizzo were very much so aligned, but in some cases, they were aligned in ways that just the sport outgrew their ideas. And I feel as if that right now, Toboni and Butera, it feels like the Nationals are ahead of the times right now. And it feels as if that the Nationals are actually getting ahead of this hiring, and that if this does work out, you will see a lot more jumps like this from younger players. Like, I think back to the NFL when the Rams hired Sean McVay at like 31 years old to be their next head coach. That was a lot of people saying like, oh my gosh, like this is an insane hire. Why are you hiring a 31-year-old, a 32-year-old to be the head coach of your NFL franchise going forward? Well, it worked out. They won a Super Bowl. They have been great ever since. That is a terrific organization led by Sean McVay and company. So I feel I'm not going to say that the Nationals are going to be like the LA Rams and they're going to transcend the way that you hire head coaches and managers in baseball, but it certainly feels as if this does work out, the Nationals might be onto something, and Paul Toboni could be someone that baseball fans and baseball insiders and baseball front office executives will be tipping his cap towards him, because this is certainly a pretty outside the box hire. And I think it does allow the Nationals a little bit of breathing room as well. But as we mentioned earlier, Mike DeBartolo is still in the organization, but also Paul Toboni answered a question that I think has been really kind of been sitting at the forefront of our thoughts here. Will the Nationals be hiring a general manager anytime soon? And if not, or if so, where is Mike DeBartolo and how does he fit in this? I've got those answers for you after this. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks, and you and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement on this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump in on the action than today. And if you have not tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats, and if you get them right, you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere. PrizePicks operates, including the big states like California, Texas, and of course, Georgia as well. And I've been using PrizePicks during both football Sundays and NBA tip-offs, and it keeps every game exciting. I'm going more on points for Alex Sarr, more on points for Keyshawn George, and also, or in the NBA, maybe you like Steph Curry, more on 3-pointers. You can do that as well with our friends at PrizePicks. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. So what will be happening with Mike DeBartolo, the Nationals' interim general manager? Well, he's got a new title, and it's not general manager. Mike DeBartolo will be the Washington Nationals' new fancy title that is the, not GM, is the senior vice president. And what Mike DeBartolo will be doing, and he will be doing and just kind of overseeing everyday baseball operations, and he will help oversee the baseball operations department. He is the senior vice president and the assistant general manager. Now, the Nationals now have 3 assistant GMs, but each of them have different roles, and we'll discuss some of those other roles later on in the show today. But Paul Toboni did answer that the Nationals will not be hiring a GM, at least for now. Those are words that weren't exactly used there. They were paraphrased, but you understand the point. I feel as if that whatever happens, happens. I do think that the Nationals will hire a GM eventually. This is just my gut feeling on this. It feels as if that whoever will be the next Nationals GM will be between Devin Pearson, who came over from the Boston Red Sox under Paul Toboni, Justin Horowitz, who came over from the Pittsburgh Pirates, or it's our guy, Mike DeBartolo, who was the interim GM once the Nationals released Mike Rizzo of his duties. That's just kind of what it feels like at this point. And I'm not saying that Toboni is going to be sitting there in his chair and testing these guys and seeing how they do in certain situations, but it does feel as if this is kind of like a trial run of, okay, guys, who's going to be the one taking accountability here? Who's going to be the one really just kind of separating themselves from the pack? Because they each had 3 different roles. And right now, for what it seems with DeBartolo, he's got the larger role where he's kind of overseeing baseball operations alongside Paul Toboni, who's obviously the president of baseball operations. This is kind of like the de facto GM when it comes to DeBartolo. And this is kind of the role that we expected from DeBartolo, like whether he was actually going to be named the general manager. We do know this, that from reporting from The Athletic, is that the Lerner family did hope for Mike DeBartolo retaining some of his job and being within this organization in some capacity. And we were on the record as well saying that I feel as if DeBartolo should be in this next front office. I think he's got the talent for it. I think he's got the chops. And again, he aligns with what Toboni wants to do. They are both aligned on analytics and data and the way that they envision baseball being in 2026 and beyond. So I think that DeBartolo staying here with a new fancy title, whether it be a raise or whatnot, that is something that is very interesting for the Nationals. And I do think that that plays a pretty big role into what could be happening moving forward. But exactly what with DeBartolo, here's the part where I'm kind of like, okay, if he is going to be your de facto GM, why not just give him that title? I'm not here to tell you that, like, it's not the end of the world to have Toboni as just the top decision maker and just kind of have that structure the same way that Rizzo did, where he's the president and the GM. Toboni is just the president of baseball operations. He's not the GM as well. But they have no one necessarily under him. So in my mind, the totem pole goes Toboni at the top, DeBartolo second from the top, Devin Pearson working under DeBartolo there, Justin Horowitz working under Pearson, and so on and so forth. Like, this is going to be a front office that I do believe will not just have one person say all. Like, yes, the final decision maker will be Paul Toboni, but I do think this will be a collaborative effort by this front office, and quite frankly, it has to be. This is a team that needs a ton of resources. This is a team that needs a completely new way forward. And so just to bring in someone like Toboni, who's obviously brilliant, very bright, you don't want to just have him pull the strings and be the end of the day decision maker that does not listen to anyone else. This is someone who has brought in a ton of talented front office executives, guys who are a lot younger than front office execs in the game. Like, feels like that this could be a front office that, number one, grows exponentially, but number two, guys that could get GM jobs if they do succeed here. This is all very interesting. And again, I think with DeBartolo being like this de facto GM guy, that's just kind of the way that I look at it, overseeing baseball operations, also giving Toboni an idea of how to navigate this ownership group, because I think that is a big part of keeping DeBartolo here as well. And I think that right now, Toboni, while he raved about DeBartolo and the person that he is and how he's gotten a lot tighter with him over this process, this does feel as if that the Nationals have to keep someone to help navigate this ownership, because that is a big, crucial part in this equation here that I think a lot of fans may just say, well, it doesn't matter too much. Toboni's going to have to do what he's going to have to do. Like, yes, but also with the data and analytics coming into this building, that's a lot of money to be spent. Could Mike Rizzo do that back in the day? I don't know. We've heard conflicting things, whether Mike Rizzo wanted to do it, whether the Nationals had the money to do it or was willing to do it. I feel as if right now, Toboni, if you want to do if he's going to have to do what he's going to have to do, ownership is going to have to go all in on this. And so we'll see ultimately what Toboni does do, but DeBartolo is staying put. He's your senior vice president and assistant general manager overseeing the baseball operations alongside Paul Toboni. But also the Nationals have two other guys in this mix that now have official titles, and we will tell you exactly what they will be doing right after this. The NBA is back, and there is no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And even if you miss the start of the game or want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. And it keeps every game so exciting. Even in the Wizards, it keeps you way, way happier just watching this game, but also winning some money. If you put some money on Keyshawn George to go over his point total, maybe the over on the total game total, that has certainly profited me some money this season for the Wizards. And especially when your team's just watching there, you're watching them grow, you can help grow your account with our friends at FanDuel. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. We have got some new roles and new faces in this front office. And the first one that I want to discuss here is Devin Pearson. He will oversee the Nationals player development operation. And Devin Pearson is someone who comes from the Boston Red Sox, obviously under Paul Toboni in baseball operations. They work side by side in exactly what they did in Boston. And Devin Pearson, I think, is going to be someone that a lot of people will really learn to love over the years. And he will be the assistant general manager, again, overseeing that player development. And Devin Pearson was the director of amateur scouting for the Boston Red Sox for years. And obviously, they have had a ton of success over the years talking about the Red Sox as far as amateur scouting goes. Like, this is someone who has helped draft Roman Anthony, draft Christian Campbell, sign different guys like the Battery for the Boston Red Sox. Like, this is someone that obviously has an eye for talent, and now he will be overseeing those operations here in the nation's capital. So I think Devin Pearson kind of taking over that player development side of things. Will he be the director of player development / assistant GM? I don't know at this point. Who knows if they'll actually really go into that, but I do think that this is going to be a pretty key deal for the Nationals. And I do believe that right now, Devin Pearson will have a huge role in what could be happening moving forward as far as player development goes. So, and again, player development has been probably the biggest buzz phrase of the offseason for the Nationals. We know what we need. The Nationals know what they need. Hiring someone with background success in player development to now run that department for you and oversee that day-to-day operation, that is going to be a huge deal and a massive moment for the Washington Nationals. So seeing Devin Pearson do that, that is going to be great. So, and this is one quote that I actually got from Alex Spear, who writes for the Boston Globe. Quote, he was the assistant director of amateur scouting under Toboni from 2020 to 2022 for the drafts that brought Marcelo Mayer, Roman Anthony, and others into the organization. Pearson became the director of amateur scouting for the last 3 drafts, which brought Kyle Teal, Christian Campbell, Connolly Early, and Peyton Toll, amongst others, into the system. That's a lot of big league talent. And we now have that in DC. So that's huge to see. And this is one that I'm really excited about, is Justin Horowitz. Justin Horowitz comes from the amateur scouting side with the Pittsburgh Pirates, who really helped run their draft. And I don't know if you guys know this. Who is the number 1 prospect in all of baseball? That is 2024 9th overall pick, Connor Griffin, out of Mississippi, high school kid, lit minor league baseball on fire this past year. And Justin Horowitz is actually credited for being one of the main pieces to really help turn around that Pittsburgh Pirates farm system. And he will be overseeing amateur scouting and will oversee all acquisitions like trades and international scouting. He's going to have a big hand in this. If I were to actually say, and this is not really knowing anything, but this might be the assistant GM hire that you should probably be most excited about. He comes from a system of which he helped draft Connor Griffin, the number 1 prospect in baseball, Paul Skeens, the number 1 overall pick. Like, he has had his hand in a lot of talent with the Pittsburgh Pirates and really helping turning around their farm system, in which, as we saw this season, they looked a lot better in the second half as they brought up some of their top prospects. And you did see a lot of development at the major league level. So Justin Horowitz overseeing the international scouting, again, which feels as if the Nationals have just really not done great in over the last decade plus, outside of like Juan Soto and a handful of other guys. But overseeing the amateur scouting and trades, like, again, Mike DeBartolo was the one who was kind of crowned for getting the return for Juan Soto back in the day. This is kind of the role that Justin Horowitz will be playing under Paul Toboni and company. So that's obviously a very important role for the Nationals. And I think that they have got a really good, bright, young guy to run that operation for them. So that's certainly something to keep an eye on. But the Nationals, they have made it official. Like, this front office is starting to shape up. The coaching staff will obviously start to shake up as well soon. But this looks like a really solid, fluid operation coming right here to Washington, D.C. So thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen. If you have not done so already, look up Locked On Nationals wherever you get your podcasts, whether it's on Apple, Spotify, and of course, the video version over on YouTube. But until then, I will catch you guys on tomorrow's program. Have a good one. Go Nats.